Thanks, Kelty. Good morning. Welcome to the spiritual gym. Today, I'm at the gym. We have this value that says we will be honest about what can be proven. So we're very careful, or at least we try to be very careful, to say things clearly and honestly. If we say something is true, we say it one way. If we say something is a belief, we say it that way. We try and be very clear. Except sometimes we don't do a great job of it. So last week I was talking, and I made a comment near the end that it wasn't planned, it was just kind of off the top of my head, and I said it in a way that wasn't honoring to our value. I said, we have figured out prayer because we studied it. There's a scientific experiment we call it the God experiment. They took 1,500 people. They broke them into three groups. One they prayed for, didn't know they were being prayed for. One they didn't pray for, and one they prayed for, and then they told them they were being prayed for. I said we solved prayer. That's what I said live. There's always more than one message. There's the message that's in my head that I think I said. There's the message I actually said. There's the message I wish I said. That's this one. And then there's the message you heard. So that's another, 50 extra messages plus another couple thousand online. So I want to make a correction. I said this experiment, it's now up to about 3,200. There's a meta-analysis that I posted on our show notes. 3,200 people they've studied with prayer. In those 3,200 people, they found no statistical evidence that prayer changed their outcomes at all. In those 3,200. There's a group of about 500 who were prayed for and knew they were being prayed for. It's just a little bit under. We're not sure why. But outside of that 3,200 people, there is however many billions of people on the earth. That study does not say prayer doesn't work for those people. That's what I misspoke. So, we make mistakes, right? We make mistakes all the time. And we try to own them. So we try and do it here at Friend Church. So this is me owning. I didn't say that clear. Hopefully I cleared it up now as a way to say we are honest about what we can prove. So that's all. Have a good rest of your day.
Guys, thank you. Good morning, everyone. You know, in my mind, there was no one more deserving than an answered prayer. Then a woman I knew, she was 9 months pregnant. She was due to give birth any day. And she got hit by a car. Happened actually on Elbow Drive, not far from here, right across the street from First Assembly, big church. I was there that night. I knew this woman. She was one of my former youth leaders at a former church I was working with. It was part of a big, kind of like a spiritual music festival that was going on. We were inside. The crowd was pouring in. There was hundreds of people there. And someone knocked on my, or kind of tapped me on the shoulder in the middle of it and said, "You need to come." We came outside and we heard about the accident. The ambulance was there. Realized I knew this woman. We rushed into the auditorium and we just literally stopped everything and we asked hundreds of people if they would come together and pray for this woman and the baby inside of her. In my mind, I believed if there was a time God was going to move, it was then. It just felt electric in that place. As people kind of banded together, sending healing vibes, whatever you want to call it. Calling on a supernatural being to do a miracle for that woman. We rushed down to the hospital, and that night, tragically, that baby died. The journey after that was heartbreaking. Her and her husband ended up filing for divorce within the year. They never recovered from it. It's like, for years, I, along with many, have wrestled with what prayer is. Is there a formula to this? I tell you, in my role, you don't know how many bedsides I've been called to down at the hospital, how many times I visited the cancer center. Some of the saddest stories, and I'm telling you, they're looking at me saying, Jeff, can you please get on the phone and dial up something for us? We need it. And there has been no shortage of desire to be able to pray a prayer, to hook something up. I can say honestly, I've tried every formula. What's weird is there were times when it seemed like it worked. And I've talked about that, but boy, I tell you, the sheer number of times where it's like, surely this time. It's left me wrestling. What is prayer? But what does prayer even do? What's prayer supposed to be? I mean, if it isn't about trying to convince some supernatural being out there to kind of intervene in the physical realm here on earth, what exactly is it? Last week, Vince presented another working definition of prayer that's much broader in scope than one that I was taught growing up. This is how he worded it. He said, prayer, perhaps, are those good things which are earnestly hoped for or actively pursued. Those things which you earnestly hope for or actively pursue. So when someone is going in for surgery and you reach out on Facebook and say, hey, our thoughts and prayers are with you, or you look at them in the eye and you say, I'm praying for you, that could mean that you're saying, I'm praying that God does a miracle for you. But it could also mean, by this definition, that I'm earnestly just hoping this surgery goes well for you. That everything goes smoothly, that you recover quickly. That's what I'm earnestly hoping for you. That's my prayer for you. I see you are in pain. I don't want that for you. So I'm hoping that whatever happens, this is only temporary for you. This is my earnest desire. This is my earnest hope. This is my prayer for you. Do you see how if prayer could mean that, it doesn't necessarily have to mean that you're expecting some supernatural miracle for that person. It's just something you're earnestly hoping for. Maybe you've said it this way. Oh, I'm praying I do well on that test. Well, what do you mean by that exactly? If you doing well on that test is your earnest hope, then maybe by saying, I'm praying I do well, maybe what we're saying is, geez, I hope I reviewed everything I was supposed to. I hope I can recall everything that I studied. I hope I can just relax and write and let it all come out the way it's supposed to. I hope. But if you think about that for a second, kind of your prayer is predicated on you doing something too. You know, it's kind of like, geez, I hope I do all the right things so that I can come over here and answer my prayers. See what I'm saying there? It's like, by this new definition, there's almost a human element that gets introduced to this. It's like, well, maybe I have a part in my prayers. Over the next number of weeks, we're going to show how prayer, by a wider definition, can revitalize your spiritual journey. Rather than just creating this big question mark in your mind, going, oh, I've had people say, why don't you pray at the end of the service? little deviation there. I will often ask them, what do you want me to pray for? That God, whatever we were talking about, that God will go out there and do that for you. I think we talked about stuff you need to go out and do. We ain't waiting for God, perhaps. Perhaps he's going, I hope you are sincere about your earnest hope. I don't know. I'm just wondering. And if he's not kind of saying, I'm praying for you, that hey, that's a supernatural conception of God out there I grew up with. So I continually look at it as this entity. I don't look at him as kind of this old man in the sky, but I do feel his spirit, her spirit, its spirit in me, coaching me. Anyways, that's a whole nother story. Let's keep moving. This morning, I want to talk about one particular expression of prayer that I think ties into this wider definition that I think probably everyone in this room has experienced, whether you realized it or not. To get there, I want to tell you a little story. It happened many, many years ago, early in my marriage with Kath. I found myself in a pretty dark place, personally. I had come home from work. It was mid-November, somewhere in there. Was coming home late, which had been a pattern. And Kathy was there at the door. I walked in. I was like, hey. I reached out to give her a hug, and she was a little bit limp. She said, Jeff, I need a break. I'm like, in my mind, I thought, oh, maybe she just wants to go out with a friend or something. She says, I just can't do this anymore. That's when I looked down and saw her. Her suitcase, packed. I'm going, what's going on here? She said, I can't do this. Now, we're shocked by what she was even suggesting in the moment. But if I'm really honest, I knew things were broken. I had been so busy. It's like I had been saying yes to so many different things, working long hours. And it was all good stuff. That was the thing. But it left me saying no to her and to our only son at the time, to Jaden. She says, we're not a priority to you. And I said, and I didn't know really how to dispute it. But all I could say is, but I want you to be. And I'll change. Don't leave. I convinced her not to leave that night. I said, I'm going to figure this out, Kath. I'm sorry. I remember praying that night, just going, God, if you could just throw me a bone and figure out why I'm to help me to stop this. I'm going to lose my marriage. I remember just being so desperate, just going, you got to throw me a bone here, man. But down deep, I really wasn't sure if even that prayer, that he was just all of a sudden going to go, and all of a sudden things are different. I was really skeptical of that, but I was just so confused. But I didn't know what else to do. I just, God, help me. Help our marriage. I don't want to lose our marriage. I don't want to lose Kathy. So the timeline gets fuzzy, but it was somewhere in that season. I come home from work, TV's on, Oprah's on. I'm not a big Oprah fan, but hey, Kath loved it. And so anyways, I'm coming in, I'm busy, and I just, for whatever reason, she had this book club going on. And she's going on and on about this author and this book that she read that literally has changed her life more than any other book she'd ever written. And the way she was talking about it, I was just like, what kind of book could do that? But the way she was talking about it, I was just like, I remember going over and standing in front of the TV just going, who is this guy? What's going on? Then this short little German comes out and no offense to the Germans, sorry. I'm going to be here apologizing next week on something, all right? So, so anyways, I'm listening to him talk, and I didn't listen for long, but what he was saying really piqued my interest. I'm like, I wonder what that's about. Piqued my interest enough to buy the book. Fast forward. That book sits there a while. Finally, early one morning, I start reading this thing. Book is called The New Earth. Now, hey, look it. You might hate the book. There's people that get nothing. That doesn't matter. It's not about the book. It's about what the book did for me. So I'm sitting there one morning, and I'm reading, and I get into one chapter, and crazy things start happening. Maybe you've had this happen, where it's like all of a sudden, the author starts talking about something that starts describing me in such detail and starts explaining something that's going on inside me that I could never see. And I remember reading and just like pulling up for a second going, what the hell? You know, like if you've ever been to a mechanic and you go in there and you go, I got a problem. And he says, okay, tell me a little bit what's going on. And then you start trying to, he says, wait a second. Does your car like try to pull to one way or the other and you fight like, yeah, it does. He says, yeah, tell me something. When you get up to a certain speed, do you find like there's a real vibration there? But then if you keep going faster and then all of a sudden the vibration starts going away. Yeah, it does that. Yeah. Let me explain what's going on here. He says, you got these things, they're called tie rod ends, blah, blah, blah. You got these weights on the rims of your tires. You probably never even noticed them. They click on there and then make sure the thing is balanced. If one of those cuffs, so he begins to start describing what he thinks is going, and you go, that's the problem? Yeah, we can fix it. This is what was going on. The mechanic, Eckhart Tolle, was talking to me. I'm just like going, So you've heard us talking a lot about managers lately, the voices in our head. And the voices they're different kinds of voices. Well, this is what he began describing. And it was almost like, he's like, hey, Jeff, you got a voice in there that sounds a little like this? If you don't do that thing, they will be extremely disappointed in you. If you say no to leading that thing, if you don't give up your time to go and do that, that's going to sour that relationship. I just thought it was my thinking, but he began describing this voice that's inside my head. And he starts saying, Jeff, that's not you. That's a voice in your head that's there. It's trying to help, but it might not be helping. I'm just like, wait. Then he says, probably right now the voice is even saying this to you right now. And I'm like, wow, what sorcery is this? It is saying that. I just remember just going, holy crap, I do have voices. And they're talking to me. And he just says, you can't always trust these things. They're trying their best, but they might not be saying the right stuff. And it might be causing you. So anyways, I won't go into all of it. Because it's not even about the voices of managers. This not what this message is. What happened in that moment is I had an epiphany. I had an epiphany about what was going on that perhaps was leading me to say yes to all this stuff that indirectly led me to say no to my own wife and my own son. Now, in hindsight, I look back and I go, that was an unbelievable epiphany. It was a spiritual epiphany. And I say it's spiritual because it indirectly, reading that frickin' book on that morning, led me on a journey to all of a sudden correcting, being able to get some distance from that voice when it starts talking. Oh, wait a second. And making over time, and I'm telling you, it took years, over time, taking different, overriding that voice and making different choices, which ended up leading me to a place where I answered the prayer that I prayed that night when Kathy was standing at the door of our house. Please, God, I want my marriage back. An epiphany, reading some crazy book, led me to making different decisions, which ended up healing things between Kathy and I. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you had an epiphany? A moment like that when you went, hey, something's just dawning on me right now. Don't tell me you haven't had these. And if you haven't, we must change that right away. You have had these moments. Sometimes they happen in the craziest places. You can be reading a book you didn't even expect to have one of these moments, and all of a sudden a bomb drops. And it's like, wait a second. Maybe you've been in the middle of a conversation with someone and they're saying something. I've been in a small group when someone's talking about some problem they got going on, and then they start sharing with their, and all of a sudden I'm just like, oh, I'm doing that. I'm doing that very thing. Oh my God. Kathy could have been telling me till she was blue in the face, but when that person said something, there are people, I'm betting, who had an epiphany as you're hunkered over a toilet in the wee hours of the morning, and you're going, oh my God, I cannot do this again. What am I doing? And the lights come on. Some have had it when their kid is looking at them and saying, I hate you because of what you just did to me. We've had epiphanies in all kinds of different ways. You've had them maybe sitting in these seats here or listening to a podcast. No one knows what's going on inside of you, but you know. And it's like all of a sudden in that moment, time stands still and starts speaking. These epiphanies, they can lead to major changes in our lives. And I think they're part of the prayer thing. They're part of a life of prayer. They're beautiful, in fact. I don't think we talk about them enough. They can be spooky. They can be very practical. In a moment, it's just like, oh, that was for me right there. And maybe in a moment you just think, oh, that was just some practical advice, but you don't realize that that practical advice is leading you one step closer to the prayer, that earnest hope that you have, that you've prayed for, that you wanted. It's some part of your life. Wouldn't it be great if we were having these things like on the daily? Like, if it was just like a regular part, just like, oh, there it was. Oh, there it is again. Whoa, we got truth bombs dropping. Here's the sad thing. They're rare. There are many of us who will go long stretches of time where we're flatlining in epiphanies. And it's not because the universe ain't talking. It's not because wisdom isn't pregnant, waiting for us to discover it. It's because we are not in a place of hearing it. Jesus talked about readiness, the readiness of a heart, the openness of a heart. One day he was talking, he said, whenever someone has a ready heart for this, the insights and the understandings, they flow freely. It's just like, here they come. But if there is no readiness, any trace of receptivity soon disappears. Just like it just vanishes, dissipates. It could be right there, and we're bumping into it and go, what was that? Anyways, cannot see it. He goes on to say, that's why I tell stories. I'm trying to create readiness in people, to nudge people toward a welcome awakening. In their present state, he says, they can stare at it until they're blue in the face, till doomsday, and not see it. They can listen till they're blue in the face and not get it. He would be talking every now and then, and he would say, let him who has ears to hear, let him hear. What was he really saying? I know some of you are hearing my voice. You're not hearing what I'm saying. It's whoosh, or it's boing, 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 boing. Why? Because we're not ready. We're not open. Let me ask you something. How open do you think you are? Some days I think I'm open. Some days I think I'm pretty convinced I know what I'm doing. Or I'm really hoping that someone else is open. You know what I'm saying? And people often come out of a service, they say, I'm hoping so-and-so was listening to that message this morning. I'm like, the clue phone's ringing, and I think it's for you, but hey, who knows? There is this sense of, I think I got life figured out. What creates openness? What prepares you for these epiphanies to happen? I got some ideas. Because that's really what this message is about. If we could have more epiphanies that could lead to more appropriate behaviors and thinking and attitudes, we could actually usher in our earnest hopes for our lives and our world. It's all part of the prayer life. This is where we're going with this. So how do we get these epiphanies to happen? What creates a level of openness and readiness of heart? First piece of bad news. Pain. Pain. Pain is one of the greatest teachers. I think it was C.S. Lewis that said, pain is God's megaphone. No one hears deeper and wider than when pain gets exacted in our lives. Isn't it true? I'll tell you, when I saw Kathy's bag packed and I began imagining my life without her, and all that usher, oh my God, my ears and eyes, I'm like, what does it take? I don't got this figured out. Okay, I'm open? Oh. That's why in recovery circles, they talk about bottoming out. Often we need so much pain to finally admit, I don't think I know what's going on here. I don't think I got the answers here. Now, I don't want to talk a lot about pain because I can't control that and I'm not inviting you into a lot of pain. Ideally, we don't wait for the pain. We learn before then. We go, I'm okay. I don't need a lot of pain. I'm open. Give me some, whatever. What do we need? So let's talk about some of those things. Let's talk about humility. Just that willingness to say, I think I might not know everything that's happening, and I'm open to something deeper and wider. In recovery circles, they say, why don't you come to the grips with the reality that your best thinking got you into this place? That is a truth pill that's hard to swallow. But when we can come to this place that says, I am doing my very best, and it's getting me to this, I think I need to look beyond me. Humility takes a lot of courage, too. It was a tough pill to swallow when I realized that this nice guy image that I had kind of put out to the world was part of my identity. Jeff, nice guy. Way back in the early days of Friends Church, one of the pastors was always chirping me, and it caught on. Unfortunately, they were calling me Brother Love. And there was this nice guy. And I just always thought it was kind of just this spiritual side of me. Yes, I am just that altruistic, that caring, and you cold SOB, I'd say to my partner. It was a difficult pill to swallow that a lot of that persona that I took on was partly something inside me that was broken, that believed, a voice that told me, you better be very loving and kind and extra for people because you are unlovable, Jeff. And you're trying to earn the love of people. That was, I'm like, what? I'm not just a nice guy? I got an agenda in this thing? I'm doing it so that they will give me some. Sometimes the epiphanies reveal things that you do not want to hear, but we need to hear them. But it takes courage to lean into that thing and go, all right, tell me the truth. This is why many people will limit the amount of epiphanies that will ever go on in their life because they're going, I don't want to know. I don't want to know the truth about how many of these problems might be me creating them. I want to believe that there's a rescue beyond me and beyond me, my choices, all this that can make this get better. Sometimes the epiphanies say, we got to talk. Yeah. Your best thinking got you here. Let me ask you something. How are you with bad news? How are you with hearing difficult truth? Because sometimes epiphanies aren't always laden with roses. Sometimes they reveal work that needs to be done. The last thing I'll talk about that epiphanies require is space. Years ago, I took, for the first time, a 3-day retreat out at Kingsfold, a retreat center out near Cochrane. And this place is designed to unplug, like no sketchy cell phone service. There's no music piped through the system. It's just like quiet, no TVs. You show up and it's like there's no big activities planned. You're there, you got nature. You got a bedroom that's very modest. There's a chapel, there's a library. And I remember just kind of going there going, oh boy, what am I going to do for 3 days? Ay, ay, ay. And I remember almost going stir crazy for the first little while. And my voice, I'm just like, oh, I gotta be productive. But over time, things began to slow. Space. I remember all the chatter in my head at first, and then it started to just get quieter and quieter until all of a sudden, it was like one day in, I began to actually feel like I was sitting outside my body, looking at my life, looking at the patterns of my life that I couldn't see, looking at my relationship with my kids, my wife, looking at the way that my work, it was like perspective. I just kept on floating up higher and higher, these elevations, looking down going, what are you doing, Jeff? It's this space, quiet, stillness. Here's the problem. In this world, we are so limited in space. It's constant hum, constant vibration, busyness, sound, plugged into podcasts. There's no 1 second I can't go to the bathroom without going, where's my phone? Where's my phone? No downtime. And so what it does is it just makes life feel like this. And you can't tell what's going on. It's no room for epiphany. I don't think everyone needs to go on a 3-day retreat. But I think in order for the epiphanies to happen, one of the greatest things we could do is just shut down for little intervals at a time. Practice 15 minutes. You coming in here, it's like, I got to turn off my phone. And it's like, I'm feeling really disconnected. Maybe after an hour, it's like, I got stuff. Shh, this is a great practice right here. Be here. What Gregory was saying today, be here. Just be in the music. How many times do you just get in the car to drive and just don't turn on anything? And you don't even have to think about anything. Have a cup of coffee, breathing. Not letting your mind going, what is it? No, shh. Space. Everything I'm talking about right now is not a new invention. In fact, for thousands of years, people that are connected to our Christian tradition have been practicing something called contemplative prayer. It's all about this. It's about shh. Richard Rohr would call it deep listening, not talking, not asking. Oh God, give me a minute. No, shh. Listening. Creating space to listen. How willing would you be to try on some of these different things? Maybe today, in order to experience more of these moments, these revelatory windows of discovery, would you be willing to just say, all right, that's it. I have worked my angles, tried my formulas. Maybe it's time where I just open up to something else. Maybe the humility says, I need to go see a therapist. I need to just open up with someone about something that I've wanted to be different, that I've earnestly hoped would change. And an act of humility just says, I'm at the end of my own wisdom right now. And if it isn't that, maybe it's saying, you know what? I need to turn off more stuff. I need to create more space in my life. So I'm going to routinely shut down within a day. Time to just stop doing anything. Or just being quiet. I'm going to do a little meditation. I'm going to pick up Calm, an app on my phone, and I'm going to practice this. I'm going to do some breathing. I don't know what it would be. Maybe it's courage that you need to try to think about exercising this week, where you have an honest conversation with someone. Maybe it's with a therapist. Maybe the courage to even face someone to talk about the thing. And you're going, I don't have the courage. And I'm telling you, maybe that is the very thing you need to do. Or talk to someone. Or be open, grab a book. There's a million answers in this thing. You're responsible for your own choice and your next step. But would you be willing today to do something that could lead to epiphany? That might just lead to some beautiful actions. That might just lead to answered prayer. A realization of that thing that you earnestly hope for. I hope you would. I hope you would. That's all I got. Have a wonderful week this week. And I pray that you would earnestly hope for something and you go after it. All right. Thank you.